Paul's truck. Paul, your truck. I'm going to take your name off of it, but you can be sure that the dirt that was in the truck for the last 40 years is now scattered across my garage floor. We'll be back in a second with the new Paul truck. And Paul's truck after I took his name off. So parents, don't put your kids' names on the cars. They don't want their names on the cars. Just if you're going to do that, put it on the base. Paul does not need his name on the side of the whole car. It's very hard to get that stuff off. All right, on with our video. Hello, it's Diecast. We're back. This is part 2 of our Lesney video. So if you have not watched part 1, you can go back and watch that now, and we'll wait for you to get all caught up. Moving on, I've moved some other cars into the background. Again, the cars in the background were my cars when I was a kid. They are here to welcome the newbies from these last couple lots. And we will move along. This guy is not in great shape. He's a little, what is this, airport snorkel truck or something like that. He is a Foamite crash tender. Crash truck for airports. And I'll show you a better example. I've got one of these guys. This is another one that we happen to see a lot. Andrew just picked one of these up also at a show. And here's what it should look like, or at least one of the versions of it. Should have a little kind of snorkel piece up there that turns. A lot of times this is broken off. Also, these back pieces should be at 90-degree angles. A lot of times they get bent. You can see that one's a little bent. And it did originally have the little airport crash tender. Well, it's not even a sticker. This is almost pre-sticker era where they would actually make plastic inserts for the lettering. That goes back away. So you're probably looking at early 60s for those two guys. Next up, we've got this little guy. And I don't think I researched this guy. He somehow scooted in. You can see I had one as a kid back there. This one's in about as good a shape. It has a roof that slides, and of course that always scratches the paint. So if you're going to find this one in played with condition, yeah, that roof is going to scratch up. And if you get one of these in brand new condition and you pay some big bucks, don't go sliding that roof around. This one also, interestingly enough, I think it was this one. Again, I didn't research this. Came with a little guy with a gun and a dog. It was like a little teeny figure. Little teeny figure that came with it. Little white figures. So I guess this guy would go out hunting with his dog. And I have never seen the little figure of the dog short of brand new. So this is the Studebaker. And it is number 42. Again, if you missed the first video, these old Lesney cars are numbered 1 through 75. And for the most part, these are all the A versions of 1 through 75, which makes them pretty easy to identify. This one is the Snow Track. He is number 35. This one originally had treads. Very hard to find it and play with condition with the treads, because the rubber plastic that they made way back when just disintegrates, especially if sun got a hold of it. It just would break, and most of those tracks were gone probably within a day of being played with. It actually still rolls without its tracks, but I have 3 of these without the tracks, and short of buying a brand new one, I'm not going to find one with tracks. This one has the little hook on the back. Sorry about the dirty fingers. I noticed that in the last video. I've been cleaning cars out here and wanted to get the video done before it got too hot. It's been pretty hot out here. So, little Snow Track. Yeah, Matchbox makes these 1 through 75, so it makes them pretty easy to track these. Next up, we saw one of these in the last video, but this one's a little different. And I'll show you the one we saw in the last video. This isn't exactly the same one, but that's a similar one. Now look at this guy. Can you tell the difference? This guy is in better shape, but that is because he's a grit spreader. He's 70A. You know, this one has the bigger wheels on it. See that? Those guys, they look like super fast wheels. It's hard to tell. They're kind of like a 4-spoke deal, but they're real skinny. And these are the skinny super fast wheels. Matchbox didn't use these for long. They showed up maybe only for a year to 2 years, and sparingly after that. But they went to the thicker super fast wheels after this. And this is a good example of this transition that was happening between the old Lesney cars, which had been around for quite a while. These old, you know, kind of steel pressed diecast cars, to them transitioning more to something that was similar to the red lines that Mattel was putting out. So yeah, this guy would be about $25 if he was in perfect condition, brand new. He is not, obviously. All right, next up, this guy, another example of one of those cars as they transitioned over. Kind of, this one is a hard one to find. He still has his plastic hook. It is barely holding on there. It looks like some 1-year-old's been gnawing on it. But this is the Ford Heavy Wreck truck. Very hard to find. It's number 71. It's the only one of these I've really ever seen used. It's also got the skinny wheels on it. You can see these are all made in England by the Lesney company. There. So the Ford Wreck truck. Next up, this one I promised to show you in the last video. I thought it was in the last video, and it was not. And this was the first crane that I got. And then I got those other two that were in the last video. This one, he's number 30A. So again, you're going to see a lot of A versions of these. 1 through 75A. Yeah, this guy's missing his hook. This is the condition I usually find these guys in. See? I'll show you. This has a rivet, and the rivets were not very tight on these. And the rivet head breaks off a lot. So you get a lot of these in parts and pieces. And they're almost always missing their little hook. In the last video I had two that were in much better shape. So next up, this guy is kind of an interesting one. We got two of them. And these guys are newer. They're up into the super fast era. I think. Let me double check something. Was this guy Lesney? This one's Lesney. They're both Lesney. Okay. These were the later Lesney cars. Again, with those wheels that start to look like the super fast cars. This is the Mercury police car. And it also goes by the Mercury Park Lane police car. And it also goes by the name Mercury. You can see there on the bottom it just says Mercury. So this one's, I always find this one kind of hard to figure out which one I'm looking at. Changing the names isn't unusual for these. It just makes it frustrating to figure out what you're looking at. The Mercury casting was used with the Mercury police commuter as well. So there's a couple different castings that use the same parts. I think the police commuter, if I remember right, had like a station wagon back on it. This one has a passenger, and ironically enough, this one's in better shape, the police chief, but police chief died in a horrible accident. I don't know if you can see in there, there's actually a driver and a passenger. Let me get that focused for you. There's a driver and a passenger, but evidently on his way to a fire scene, the police chief got his head cut off in there. Horrible accident. This police chief, see, he's still in there with his passenger. So in this county, they're looking for a new police chief there. Yeah, a little red asphalt going on there, I think, for those that took driver's ed back in the 60s. Next up, I'm trying to go fast so that I can get this through without cutting the video. We've got a Greyhound bus. This was the fourth variation. Black and yellow base. Black and yellow base. I have one of these with the old Lesney wheels on it. I just couldn't find it to bring it out. And this guy, another one of the rare ones, in good shape, just because it's got a lot of plastic that tends to break. Here's another one of these dumpers. Whoops, it just dumped. Another one of these dumper trucks. And this GMC tipper truck. Moving parts. This was the second variation on it. This has the spiral wheels. This is probably the fourth one we've seen if you've watched both of these. They all had junk in the back. This one had a melted crayon. And I've just spent a lot of time taking that out, but shows that you can restore these guys. You probably saw Paul's dumper truck there at the beginning of the video. Next up, this guy. He is not in great shape. This is a field car. He is number 10, and he's in good shape as you're going to find this guy played with. That plastic top just gets destroyed. This was in a 5-pack, which is unusual for these, and it makes this guy pretty rare, but mine is not in perfect shape. So he will go in the collection. But I know he is not worth a ton. Last in our little video is this little Volkswagen. And our little Volkswagen here is the 1500 Saloon. He's number 15. He would normally have stickers. Okay, we're back. I'm going to use this lower res version of video just to finish this up. This was the 1500 Saloon. Number 15, he'd normally have, I think, 137 stickers. And the old Lesneys would only have stickers. They had not developed the tampon paint system by then. And they didn't have the sparkly paint. Those came along with the red lines that came out either after or right around exactly the same time as this. The tampon technology really didn't show up until after the red line era had passed. But this is a great example of how Matchbox was trying to compete with the red lines. I don't know the exact year on this guy, but you can really see now they've got some suspension. The big old heavy steel wheels are gone. You can see they've gone to like a base system where the base holds the axles in place. And even though this is not a super fast, this is still a Lesney car. It's at the end of that era of these kind of metal pressed cars. You just, once the red lines came out, nobody wanted the old slow cars anymore. And now Matchbox was switching over to these cars that eventually became the super fast cars that were meant to compete with the red line Hot Wheels. It never really did compete, but were around at the same time. So I hope that little dig down into history was fun for you. I do have a few more Lesney cars scattered about that I couldn't find for the video, so they'll show up in the next couple videos. Again, we're waiting for our 800th subscriber contest. That will be around very soon. It might be the next video if I get with it. And I will see all of you very soon. Bye.